Hi, welcome to the last part of Chapter 7, all about cells. Lots of great videos that you can check out in this topic. And we start off with looking at prokaryotic and eukaryotic cells. Prokaryotic being the primitive ones, that's how I would like to think of them. And they do not have a membrane around their chromosomes, so no nuclear membrane and no other membranes around any cell parts like you find in the more advanced eukaryotic cells. So bacteria and blue-green algae might be the only prokaryotic cells that we know of. Everything else are made of eukaryotic cells, including all plants, animals, fungi, people, and the eukaryotic cells are ones that have all of the organelles surrounded in membranes. For the rest of this topic, we'll be looking at those organelles and looking at what jobs they do, and how we start off with looking at how plant and animal cells are different. Animal cells just have this cell membrane, no cell wall around it like plants do. Animal cells have the organelles that plants have as well, except that their vacuoles may be numerous and small. And in animal cells, I just don't see a vacuole in this photograph very well, like this vesicle is a vacuole, but it's really tiny. In plants, the vacuole tends to be very large. So right here you can see a very large vacuole almost takes up a majority of that cell. Plant cells also have this cell wall that surrounds their cell membrane, and that rigid cell wall made of cellulose helps plants stay upright even though they do not have a skeleton. So that's what the cell wall is for. The other thing that plant cells have is these chloroplasts, which will help them do photosynthesis because they contain chlorophyll, and that chlorophyll can use sunlight to carry out a reaction that forms sugar, glucose, for the plant as a food source. So we're going to look at all the structures that are in these cells, and that's what our topic is going to focus on. We start off with a membrane, that membrane structure, the membrane that's underneath the cell wall, but also the membrane that makes up the coating around all the organelles is the same kind of structure. It is a double layer of lipids or fats, and they are like this circle with a couple of little tails coming off. Those are fats. And then we have these embedded proteins. So the phospholipid bilayer with embedded proteins is the membrane structure. The nucleus is where all the chromosomes are located that contain all the information about making the cell and cell parts. And the nucleolus is just a really dark patch inside of the nucleus that maybe helps make ribosomes, which are the little speckles inside a cell that help with making products that leave the cell proteins. Nuclear membrane or nuclear envelope is what lets things in and out of the nucleus through little pores. Lysosomes are little sacs of enzymes that will digest food particles. And so when a food particle comes into the cell, a lysosome joins with that food particle so that the enzymes can break it up into smaller pieces. Incidentally, they call it a suicide sac because if the cell is damaged, worn out, or dying, the lysosome will burst open, let its enzymes out, and that's how the cell just gets rid of itself. Endoplasmic reticulum, are the folded channels or tubes that are running throughout the cell and things that that are made in the cell are have this tunnel that it can leave the cell through. The little red, they're stained red here, little bumps that are found on the endoplasmic reticulum are tiny ribosomes that are found everywhere, but if they're packed onto the endoplasmic reticulum, then we would call it rough ER, because you can see that it has those ribosomes stuck on there. Many ribosomes are also found speckled throughout the cell. There's a picture of the rough ER there. And there is also smooth ER that does not have ribosomes, and still the job is to transport things through the cell. Those little ribosomes are spots that are going to be a location, basically. I call it a workbench, where products that the cell is making will be assembled. So, for example, if it's a cell that is in your pancreas that's forming insulin, that insulin molecule, what will happen is some genetic material will be running through that ribosome, and it's the location of the ribosome that those insulin molecules will be assembled, for example, or any molecules that the cell is making. So it's a workbench for assembling proteins. The Golgi apparatus, this is a packaging organelle. So if it was a hormone like insulin that was being formed in the cell, it would be packaged, and a little vesicle or vacuole would form around that insulin molecule before it's pushed out of the cell. Lots of great videos all the way through this PowerPoint that you guys can check out. Actual picture of a Golgi here with all the little vacuoles that it's made. Mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell, which means that it is the location that cellular respiration will happen. So all the food that you're eating is broken down, sent to cells. That broken down food, glucose, is going to go to the mitochondria, and that's where cellular respiration will happen, and energy molecules called ATP are going to be formed as a result of the cellular respiration that's happening at the mitochondria. So if there's cells that need a lot of energy, like muscle cells, they'll be loaded with mitochondria. Centrioles are these little bundles of tubules that will be functioning when the cell divides. That's where they are right there. They will actually send out little extensions of these tubes, which are called spindles, and they will go out and help to separate these chromosomes. These chromosomes will be split apart by the cell division process, so that this cell can actually split into two cells. And these little centrioles help that happen. Like so, they pull apart the chromosome. Okay, microtubules and microfilaments help to give the cell some structure. So they're like these little fibers that are all over the cell, so this doesn't just like collapse. Cilia and flagella are also made of microtubules, and they will be found on certain cells. Not all cells have them, but animal cells might have them. For example, cells of your respiratory tract will have cilia that will catch little dust particles. Some one-celled organisms have cilia, like a paramecium has a cilia. There's a paramecium right there. Cilia all around it that will help it to move, and also sweep food into its little gullet. This little gullet is its stomach area. And then I don't have a picture of a flagella, but cell like a sperm cell will have a flagella. So that's also made of microtubules. Okay, vacuoles are the same as vesicles, which are just spaces full of water or food or minerals. And it says here plants usually have the one large one, and animals have smaller ones. There might be wastes in there as well. All these little spaces there are the vacuoles or vesicles in the animal cell, and there's the one giant one in the plant cell. It's huge. Okay, cell has all this liquid inside where all the organelles are floating in. That's the cell cytoplasm. And that brings us to a few comparisons of plant and animal cells, which I kind of went through right at the beginning of this presentation, how plants really are the ones that have the cell wall and the chloroplasts, and that makes it unique, and the large vacuole, I guess, it makes it unique compared to the animal, and the animal may have cilia or flagella. Okay, cell wall only in plants gives it some support, made of cellulose. Chloroplasts have chlorophyll, can help with, well, can function in doing the photosynthesis process. And you guys can watch a few videos there. Here's a couple of cool cells, cork and onion cells, onion skin cells. And here's another plant cell with all the little green chloroplasts in there. And these are cells that you would have seen under the microscope, but these are all cheek cells, very same cells, but very much more magnified on the left here. And that wraps up our video on cells. Take a look at the videos that are embedded in the presentation. Lots of great things to see, and I will see you next time.